All right, good evening. I'd like to call the meeting to order for the Tehachapi City Council and roll call, please.
I'm going to do it from back here. Mayor Wiggins, sorry.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith.
Present.
Councilmember Headke.
Here.
Councilmember Davies.
Here.
And Councilmember Covenport.
Here.
Everyone is present, thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I'd ask all of you to rise for the invocation that will be delivered by Pastor Chris Frost from Mountain Bible Church.
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity to recognize your presence and activity here in our city this evening. We thank you for each person that's here tonight who serves our community. God, all of us are going through difficulties in life. We ask that you help us consider our challenges and tests as gifts from you, because it's when we are challenged that our faith life is thrown out into the public eye and it reveals our true colors. We ask that we would not try to escape the challenge before us, but that we would endure it so that it would have its perfect work on us, that we'd be fully qualified, not lacking in any way. We ask for the welfare of our city. We pray that your will would be done in Tehachapi, California, as it is in heaven. We ask for peace and prosperity because we know that when the city prospers, we all prosper. We give you the details and agenda of this meeting. We put the results in your hands, and in your Son's name we pray.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you. Mr. Davies, lead us in the flag salute.
Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to remind you before we go into the consent agenda that we have the door shut and we're working on our inside voices. when the hall fills up, it gets noisy and it makes it really difficult for them to hear the 911 calls coming. And we certainly don't want to be responsible for someone not getting a call in. So if you need to talk while the meeting's going, we ask that you would go outside. And after the meeting, if you need to discuss something, stay in here so you don't have to go out in the cold. All right, consent agenda. All items listed with an asterisk are considered to be routine and non-controversial by city staff. Consent items will be considered first and may be approved by one motion if no member of the council or audience wishes to comment or ask questions. Are there any comments on the consent agenda from the audience? Council?
Motion to approve consent. I'll second it.
Moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Let the record show it was it was a 5-0 vote. She's hiding back there. Audience oral and written communications. The City Council welcomes public comments on any items within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Council. And we respectfully request that this public forum will be utilized in a positive and constructive manner, and persons wishing to address the council should state their name and area of residence, the matter of city business to be discussed, and then, if possible, a staff member can discuss that or can refer you back to come see them at City Hall. Any public comments?
I don't think you're going to have much noise from the audience tonight. I'm here on behalf of Main Street Tehachapi, and I'd like to address the council, and particularly the two new members of the City Council, briefly on what Main Street does. You may have some awareness of what we do, but we're part of the National Trust for Historic Preservation, and we're one of more than 1,600 communities around the United States that work to revitalize and sustain downtown business districts. Our local Main Street organization was founded about 20 years ago and is part of the Downtown Tehachapi master plan that was put together at that time. We work to provide support to the downtown businesses and to provide amenities that the city cannot provide through our fundraising efforts. In addition to the wine walks, we present the farmers market, the trunk or treat on Halloween, and all of this is accomplished by an all-volunteer board of directors. If we had more volunteers, we could do more. At one point, we had paid staff, and we did do a lot more activities downtown. And you may remember from the branding study that the city did about 5 years ago, one of the reasons people come to Tehachapi is because of our events. And unfortunately, Main Street hasn't been able to provide as many of those events in the past few years. But today, I have a check to present to the city for $5,000 that we're donating towards the purchase of the Christmas decorations that were installed this past Christmas. This is made possible through the wine walks that we do each year as fundraisers, and also our main business is to promote the downtown businesses, so that's what we strive to do. Also, another hat I'm wearing tonight, as a member of the City of Tehachapi Planning Commission, I wanted to make a few comments on the role of the Planning Commission. I know that Ms. Pogancourt attended several meetings before she was elected, and at times other council members have attended the Planning Commission meetings. And I want to assure the entire City Council that the Planning Commissioners take our responsibility seriously. We sit at a dais just as you do and conduct public hearings on matters before the Commission. Our packets are sometimes pretty thick and require a lot of reading and study, sometimes reaching several hundred pages when there are EIRs for us to consider. And we ask questions of staff and oftentimes of the applicants for the projects. We listen carefully to the local area residents, the comments they make when they're before us, and many times we're able to mitigate their concerns by directing staff to make minor changes to plans that will better serve the public. And whether there are 3 or 4 people in the audience or whether there's 500 as there were at some of the Walmart hearings, we give every commenter our full attention and we take their comments into serious consideration. And although we rely on the city staff reports to make our decisions, at times we ask staff to reconsider and make changes and defer decisions to another meeting to satisfy our recommendations. So we don't just rubber stamp staff recommendations. As Jay can attest, we sometimes contradict some of the findings that he and Trevor have come up with. We take our responsibilities seriously, and we attempt to make decisions that best serve the entire community, yet meet the legal standards that go with individual property rights and zoning. Those are very important things for us to look at. We can't just make decisions based on how we feel about things. Councilmember Hedke has lamented the sometimes sparse attendance at some of our meetings, but it seems to me that when there's an item that has wide interest to the public, word gets around and attendance is greater. Many times we do have between 40 and 50 people attending. And we would welcome more participation too. It makes us feel like we're doing a better job, just as I'm sure you would like to see more people in your audience when you have city council meetings. So those were my comments, and I do have a check I wanted to present to the mayor at this time.
She's in the wings waiting.
So this is the $5,000 that we're donating to the city to help pay for the decorations that were installed this year.
Okay, great.
Okay?
Wonderful.
Another meeting to go to, like most everybody did tonight, so I won't be able to stay for the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want you to know that a city staff member just said, make sure you give that to Hannah.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right. Any other comments from the public? All right. If not, we will move ahead to item number 4, Finance Director reports.
So basically,
We will need Mr. Davis to
Okay.
recuse himself.
I didn't know if she had to read it before he...
No, we don't.
Okay,
I need to recuse myself because I'm employed by RSI.
thank you.
That should be reflected in the minutes.
Okay.
so this is the disbursement of the expenditure to RSI Petroleum Products.
All right. Are there any questions concerning this from the audience? Council?
Motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Been moved and seconded to approve the disbursements and bills for RSI Petroleum. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Let the record show it was a 4-0 vote. Thank you. And we'll wait for him to come back. Public Works Director reports.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, council members. I'm sure this is an item you've been just dying to look at. The State Water Resources Control Board has mandated all public agencies that own and operate sanitary sewer systems to comply with the sanitary sewer system waste discharge requirements. In order to maintain compliance, each governing body is required to adopt an updated sewer system maintenance plan. The council previously approved the previous version of this sewer maintenance plan in October of 2012, and this is simply just an update to that plan from 2012. Updates include various items updating staff org chart, contacts. It also includes some updates for the most current practices and policies that the wastewater team have implemented. It also includes a plan to roll out a FOG program, which is fat, oils, and greases, for the city to help communicate with the public how important it is to not put those things down the sewer system. So once this final version is updated and approved by well, it's been updated, and once it's approved by council, we will post it on the city's website and at public, I think it'll be posted at City Hall as well. So the recommendation is that you approve this sewer system management plan as presented.
Are there any questions concerning this from the audience? Council? I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we adopt the sewer system management plan, the revised edition of 1/16/19.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded to approve the sewer system management plan update. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Let the record show it was a 5. I'm sorry.
I will abstain.
I'm sorry. I missed you. Okay, let the record show it was 4 with 1 abstention. Number 8.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The next item is simply the purchase of a utility vehicle for our utility department in Public Works. The utility department has solicited quotations for the purchase of a new service truck for the city's wastewater system maintenance and operation activities. This service truck is similar in make and model to the recently purchased, the other recently purchased vehicles within Public Works. 3 vehicle dealers were contacted. We got 2 prices back, and one of those 2 prices was later rescinded. So that's why you only see one quotation attached. This item is actually in our 2018-19 budget. It was budgeted for $50,000, and we chose to buy a lower cost vehicle for roughly $31,000 with a savings of about $19,000. So Staff's recommendation is to approve the purchase of this service vehicle from Three-Way Chevrolet for the amount of $30,968.58.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the audience?
Is this truck, is it just a service truck? It doesn't have any specific?
It's actually a Chevy Colorado extended cab, just standard bottom of the barrel model, no frills.
Just with the city of Tehachapi on the side? Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
Do we have in our fleet, do we have this size truck now, the Colorado?
Yeah, we have, I believe, we have three, fairly new ones as well.
Okay.
And then we have two that are old.
Okay, I didn't know if we're going for a full size to now this mid-range. I just want to make sure that's going to be adequate enough for us.
No, it'll be fine now. Yeah.
What's this truck going to be used for?
It's for our head operator at the wastewater treatment plant. He manages all of the wastewater systems, so all the sewer lines, the lift station, the stormwater collection system, and of course the wastewater treatment plant itself.
Does he haul tools or anything in the back of the truck?
Nothing that couldn't be hauled in this truck.
Okay, so we use it. That's what I'm saying. Do we need a truck? So with the haul tools and different items?
Yeah.
Chemicals and stuff?
Right.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Marsh.
Madam Mayor, I have a question. Don, is there any benefit for us to lease a vehicle rather than purchase a vehicle? I know the chief has had some success in the past with, I think, 3 vehicles that the department got at one point that were lease vehicles, and I know that there was a financial advantage to doing a lease over an outright purchase. Did we look at a lease versus a purchase in this case?
Can I jump in?
Sure.
It was not lease, it was a lease purchase. So actually, that was, the term is a lease, but at the end of about 3 years, like dollar purchase type of things.
Okay.
So that was a city purchase. They just use the terminology lease. Usually, by doing lease, the interest rate is usually higher.
Okay.
Then we finance our own.
To answer your question, we did consider that. We didn't think in this case that it would be viable, mostly because it's fairly low miles, and we expect to keep this vehicle for 15 years, or at least 10 years. It'll be low miles and a long-term vehicle for the city. So we didn't think a lease really made sense in this case. Just as a side note, we are having some discussions with with a leasing company to consider going to more leases in the future. I discussed this with them, and that, hey, we were about to do this, does it make sense? And they said we would most likely transition vehicles over a long period of time anyways, so it doesn't make any impact on that decision long term as far as whether we lease in the future or not.
Okay.
So.
All right, great, thanks.
Any other questions or comments from the council? Do I have a motion?
I move to adopt that we purchase a service vehicle for the utilities department, purchase price of $30,968.58.
Okay.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor of the purchase of this service vehicle, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Let the record show it was a 5-0 vote. Thank you. Development Services Director reports.
Honorable Mayor and council members, first let me say I started getting the plague that's going around the world here on Friday, and so I'm on antibiotics now, but forgive me if I have to stop and cough. Yeah, anyway, so just wanted to let you guys know that. So anyway, the first item that I have for you tonight is the Capitol Hill specific plan adoption. So pursuant to the meeting that we had on January 7th in which we introduced this item to you, tonight is the recommendation that you adopted. So briefly, the Capitol Hill specific plan revised is a planning document that had first in December gone to the Planning Commission for review and consideration on a couple of occasions, actually. Speaking to what Charles had said, that was one of the items. For instance, the first time we brought it, they asked for changes, and we brought it back a second time. Anyway, it governs about 1,900 acres of land north of Highway 58, known as the Capitol Hills area. That excludes the area that is developed as Capitol Hills now. As a reminder, where we already have kind of roads and streetlights, that is Capitol Hills proper. That land is not. It's already zoned and therefore does not need to be a part of this specific plan. So this is really the vacant land north of Challenger Drive and northeast of the hospital in that area, extending up in and over the hills, which is how you get to that large of acreage. The APN numbers are listed in the staff report. And again, a specific plan's purpose is to take an area that the general plan has identified as needing further planning, more detailed planning to allow development to occur. The specific plan is that intermediate step that identifies a conceptual circulation plan for where roads would go and a conceptual zoning plan to lay out zoning for that area, as well as any other sort of governing items that are appropriate as part of that. And so we introduced this item as a reminder to you guys on January 7th. Since that time, city staff, to my knowledge, has not received any comments. Tori, did we receive any? Yeah, we didn't receive any comments on this item, nor did we, that we didn't address as part of the Planning Commission approval. So tonight, my recommendation is that you adopt an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Tehachapi adopting the Capitol Hills Specific Plan revised and adding section 620-170 to the Tehachapi zoning code. I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have.
Any questions from the audience concerning this? Council?
Just a question. On the original Mellow Roost tax that was on this, was this part of the entire area, or was that for the other balance of the property?
That's a good question. The first Mellarus that Councilmember Smith is talking about is what funded the construction of the roads and the streetlights that are out there now.
And sewer and water, everything.
And sewer and water, correct. I believe, and Anna, you can correct me, it is limited strictly to the parcels that are immediately adjacent to those roads. The land that's in this specific zone plan, to my knowledge, none of them are encumbered with this Mellarus. And so, yeah, you can see that's the blue line on the drawing, if you guys can see that, is the area captured within the specific plan, and hopefully you can see that the area where the hospital and the Holiday Inn Express are excluded from the boundary of this specific plan. So none of the lots that are listed with the APN numbers that are the subject of this study are encumbered by that. I think most of them are unencumbered at this point anyways.
That went away.
But yeah.
Yes. That entire amount of tax was retired.
That's right, correct.
There was a
workout plan
was completed and stuff. So, two things I would like to add to this is there was a specific plan adopted in the early 80s for this area, and it envisioned a lot of people, skyscrapers, all kinds of things that are not necessarily conducive to Tehachapi today. So this plan brings it way down. It's more manageable, and it could potentially be a lot less people. So when you hear, on the streets about this specific plan and how things are being ruined, actually we're bringing it way, way down, right? The second thing is it protects the entire viewshed. There will be no development on the hillsides, right? That's important as we move forward, because once somebody starts building on the foothills and creeping up the hillside, we've lost that forever. So that viewshed is going to be protected. So this document was created by the City of Tehachapi, the property owners, our consultants, and High Speed Rail, all working together to really create a plan that looks towards the future for our northern boundaries. Very happy with the document.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
My major concern, and I've asked about this, is the noise if and when the high-speed rail ever came in, and how they're going to eliminate that. I know it's going to go around the outside, but you're still going to have vibration and noises.
Yeah. The answer to that question is that issue will not effectively be addressed until they issue their environmental document to govern that this section of the rail line. Before going that far, though, I would say, yeah, noise is a major concern for us at a staff level when we've looked at this. We've had numerous meetings with high-speed rail, some of which have been very specific meetings about noise. They have been open with the public about the potential for high-speed rail to be a major noise producer. They have ways to mitigate that. They're proposing, they have told us that they think that it's likely walls would be constructed around the rail line, but that's not a guarantee. You're just hearing this from me, not from them, so you can't take it to the bank. I would also say this, though, maybe just to talk quickly about the topic of high-speed rail. With a new governor comes a new agenda for the construction of high-speed rail. And maybe I'll leave it at that and suggest Gavin Newsom has not been silent on the issue of his thoughts on high-speed rail. He is not in as strong a support of it as Governor Brown was. And so I think that some of the policy folks are starting to think that he may not do as ambitious a high-speed rail as Governor Brown was shooting for. Nothing's changed yet, but as a reminder to you and to the public, the very last, this section of the high-speed rail coming through Tehachapi is they have officially said, is their last planned leg of the high-speed rail, which at the rate they're building now means that I don't know that I'll see it ever happen if it ever happens. And that presumes that Governor Newsom and future governors after him continue to support the outlay of money for something of this nature. Here's what I hypothesize, is that he will probably try to get it done between Bakersfield and maybe San Jose, and then he might wash his hands of it at that point and be done, which would mean that it may never come through Tehachapi. Anyway, so a lot of crystal ball action here. No one really knows how a change in governor is going to change it, but anyway, so that's a little future on high-speed rail where I see it based upon my seat in this. And to answer your question again, yeah, noise is a major concern, and we'll see what they do when they bring out their document. So,
in this particular planning document, it was planned for with and without high-speed rail. So there are both sides there. And I would mention through the mayor to Councilman Pogencourt, we do meet with high-speed rail on a semi-regular basis at the city, in addition to public meetings. We can invite you to the next meeting if you like, and you can learn more about the project, what their plans are, and how they're moving forward, or not. Things tend to change quite rapidly with high-speed rail.
Okay, thank you.
We can do that.
Any other comments or questions? Then I'll entertain a motion for the second reading and adoption of this ordinance for the Capitol Hills specific plan.
Motion on staff's recommendation.
I second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Let the record show it was a 5-0 vote.
Thank you. My second item for you tonight is the citywide tree planting and stormwater capture project agreements. So I know we discussed this several months ago when we formally applied for the California Natural Resources Agency's Urban Greening Grant Program. I think what we told you at that time was they had sort of pre-indicated they were prepared to grant the project to us, but then at that point they asked for the formal approval by council to move forward with the project. So things have progressed in the last few months, and the first real step at this point is to enter into an agreement for the exchange of that money. And that's what you have before you tonight. We had not begun the design phase of the project because staff did hear you guys loud and clear that you'd like to see the design in a draft stage so that you can have comment on how we're going to lay it out. And but the first step with them is to get an agreement together that governs how they're going to send the money to us and how we're going to spend it. And so that's what you have tonight. Again, the project, as a reminder for you all and for the audience, was for the planting of about 450 to 500 trees along with some plants along the bike path on Tehachapi Boulevard, the bike path on Antelope Run, and then and the bike path on Valley Boulevard, as well as then median improvements on Curry Street between Pinion and Highline. The agreement has been reviewed by the city attorney, and the exhibits have been detailed out in communication with CNRA. in accordance with their policies. So the action tonight then is to enter into an agreement between the City of Tehachapi and the California Natural Resources Agency for the Urban Greening Grant Program for the citywide tree planting and stormwater capture project. I think the only other thing I would tell you is that this agreement includes a tentative schedule. They have said that we have some flexibility to make changes, but staff's plan at this point it's on page 159 of your PDF if you're interested in it, is to work on CEQA compliance and the design through this year with the hope to go to construction in spring of next year. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you all might have.
Any comments or questions from the audience? Yes, sir.
Dennis Wallstrom, 906 Black Oak. I know that Councilman Smith had brought this, the greening of the medians on Curry. And I was wondering if we were thinking about putting a memorial up to Ed in that area. Because I know it was important to him, I know it was important to Phil, it was important to all of us actually. Would that be something that would be on the question to ask for?
To answer, I don't think we could fund it through this program since it wasn't part of the grant, but there's absolutely no reason you guys couldn't, the council would have that authority, I think.
Yeah, we could certainly, that's a great idea. I know Friends of the Depot have a memorial inside the depot. I think the city doing something would be very appropriate. It's been discussed. We haven't come up with a good idea yet. This may be, I wouldn't want to have an actual plaque, I don't think, in the middle of the road that people might want to visit and, you know, kind of cross the road, but maybe a dedication of a tree or something.
Well, Ruth knows where it's at.
Easily done. It's a great idea. It's a great idea.
Yeah, and Ed drove out that way 6 times a day.
So that's a great idea, Mr. Wallstrom. We can do it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Are there any other comments or questions?
Good job.
Council?
Yes, I have a question. Oh, sorry, go ahead. So if we approve this and everything goes, do we get our money first so we can start planning, or when do we receive the funds?
That's very optimistic. No. No, the short answer in most of these grant applications is that we have to pre-fund it and then we get reimbursed. So no, that's pretty standard fare in these items. But
how soon after we're done?
Usually it depends on how quickly we can process the paperwork. Each grant agency is a little different depending upon the complexity. This one, this is the first time we received this grant. I can only kind of tell you my gut, because they don't have a formalized program. They'll tell you, we'll compensate you within 30 days of the expense, but you have to get all your paperwork right, and then if they find like it's off by 2 cents, they send it back to you, and you have to change it again, and it depends on who's in the office when you send it there. So I can only tell you what my read of the situation is based upon reading their regulations and talking to their people. This seems to be a pretty get it done oriented grant program. And what I mean by that is they seem to be pretty flexible. They have told us they don't have a lot of heavy rules for us in the execution of the project. They say basically construct it in accordance with your local, laws, which is really great for us because we do that every time. That's never the issue. It's always all the extra laws that somebody else puts upon us that we have to, or grant rules that we have to follow. So that's a good indication that they're going to be pretty straightforward with us, as long as we're clear with them and we're letting them see the draft documentation, that they're going to greenlight our project, and then in theory, the difficulty in invoicing will be relatively simple. So hopefully 30 to 60 days is a reasonable timeline for reimbursement.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Sure. And I know it's going to be next spring until we can even start, but can anything be phased where you might have, like, say, the Curry median is a small piece that you could get that done just to show the public that, we're getting some funds and get it started, and then and maybe here and there, a phase here, a phase there, and they'd be finished by next spring. Just a thought.
Can it be done? Yes.
I know we have a lot of irons in the fire.
Yeah, it's one of those.
Just think about it. I'm not.
Okay.
All right.
I'll think about it. Yeah, I'll schedule. I'll take a look at the schedule and see if there's any wiggle room. I looked at the schedule when I first planned it, and my concern is just that if I'm off by a month, I'm going into winter with planting, which is hard on plants, versus if I'm off by a month in spring, it's May, and it's not that big a deal. You know, like, whereas if I'm off by a month and it's, instead of October, it's November, and then I plant a bunch of plants that die right away. So that was my reasoning. Let's
not do that.
Anyway, so I'll take a look. If I feel like I can get the construction out by late summer, then I would feel comfortable with a fall start. But otherwise, I'm gonna.
Or even get a start.
Yeah.
You know, where the public sees some progress.
Well, I might be able to start in the winter on like irrigation construction, and then it would see a start. But the planting, I definitely want to coordinate with the weather for obvious reasons.
That's just my thought on that.
Fair enough.
Any other comments from the council? I just want to note that I've seen some talk around town that we got a $900,000 grant to put in a bike trail, referring to this, and that there's no way in the world we could spend $900,000 to put in a bike path. We already have bike paths. These are trees that are going to go and enhance those bike paths in some other areas. So I just wanted to clarify that they heard bike path and they didn't hear trees, and so anyways.
How about we can get that out in the public on our website and let everybody know?
Yes, maybe we could.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, just a comment. I have had several people approach me with reservation about the project because of the magnitude, the amount of money. You know my position, I'm fiscally conservative, and the people that approached me were concerned that, not necessarily, the bike path issue didn't come up. It was the fact that, you know, there's 500 trees or 450 or whatever the number ultimately ends up being. That's going to take a considerable amount of ongoing resource from the city to maintain that, whether it be directly inside or Alpha Landscape. It's going to consume a tremendous amount of water. The people that approached me had reservations on whether or not that was a good thing for the city to do. They were not opposed to beautifying, you know, because something needs to be done. But they were concerned with the expenditure, the water and the resources used to maintain the project and the vegetation and trees going forward. I mean, we all know how I particularly voted in the past on the issue, and it created a tremendous outcry. And my position, unfortunately, has not changed regarding the reasons why I was opposed to the project initially. And we need some type of beautification going on in the areas that are mentioned and are applicable to this project. I'm just not sure that the expenditure of roughly $1 million is the best way that we could utilize funds, granted being a grant, to beautify those areas. That is my reservation, and that is the input that I've heard from several people in the community.
Thank you. Do you have any other? No. There aren't any other comments. I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded for the citywide tree planting and storm water capture project so that we can enter into an agreement. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I will abstain.
Let the record show it was 4 ayes and 1 abstention. Okay, Tehachapi Train Depot paint restoration project, notice of completion.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. My third item for you tonight, I had to think about that, wow, was the repainting of the historic train depot downtown. And this is just a notice of completion. So just to, as you guys will recall, you entered a contract with Premier Services for the Tehachapi Train Depot paint restoration. Following a walkthrough by city staff, just to remind you, as we basically did an entire exterior repaint of the depot. It also then included all of the railing, which I believe the Friends of the Depot contributed $8,000, correct? Yes.
Wow.
towards the cost of repainting that. So thank you. That's a great example of how those partnerships work out well. Anyway, we hope you think it looks great. We think it looks great. Anyway, staff completed our walkthrough and determined that all contract items had been completed. And so at this time, a notice of completion must be filed in order to close out the contract. So my recommendation is that you approve the notice of completion for the Tehachapi Train Depot Paint Restoration Project and direct staff to record the appropriate document. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the audience?
I just have a comment. I had some family up here during Christmas, and they have a train depot over there in Paso Robles where they live, and they said this is remarkable. We walked around and saw the Christmas decorations, and they were just really, they haven't been to town in a long time, and they were just real happy how everything looked. And after that was a complete rebuild.
Yeah.
When we had the fire.
Yeah.
So they thought that would never go back up, and so they were just real happy with it. And it was a nice compliment to everybody. So
thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Go ahead.
Thanks, Phil. Thanks, Madam Mayor. I think that we definitely should convey to the contractors that they did a fantastic job. They did it very expeditiously. When you see the amount of effort that was applied to getting in there and doing the scraping and the prep work, and then turning around and painting that in the time frame that they allocated, they should get an accolade for doing it so quickly. So please pass that on to the contractor.
Will be done.
Thanks.
Bill?
Just, that's another gem in our, another jewel in our crown downtown. And you see people that visit here, and one of the things they come up for is to see our downtown, and they always comment on our depot. And the restoration and the rebuilding was total community, I mean, entire mountaintop. Everybody in this region put into that, and it was really neat to see. So it was a good job.
Any other comments? I would just like to add that the ashes were not cold before our mayor, Ed Grimes, was standing on a street corner on a podium yelling, "We will rebuild," and wanted money, so he was quite instrumental in that. All right, do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Okay. Second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. The Tehachapi Train Depot Paint Restoration Project, notice of completion to accept that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Let the record show it was a 5-0 vote. City Manager's report.
Nothing this evening, thank you.
Okay. Council member reports? Did you have anything, Mr. Davies?
no.
Bill?
Just a real quick update, Kern Cog last week. We're starting to, at our meetings, in times past, we would have representatives from Caltrans, from District 6 out of Fresno, and we are now getting representatives from District 9 out of Bishop attending every meeting now, which is really good because we are in District 9 all the way to, I think, Caliente. That's right. Okay. And they did an overview in a workshop prior to the meeting of the truck climbing lanes, and that's something dear and near to my heart for about the last 20 years down there, and it is really getting traction to a point where they're going to be finishing up an initial project study report, and they went over the 3 phases that they're just preliminary guesstimates of cost. If you start down around the Bina overpass, where where you've got that over just before you come up to General Beale, and that first climb there, and then the next climb is after 223, the Arvin cutoff, the steep curves and incline in that area, and then the next section they've marked off as from Keene to Broom Road to Tehachapi. So they've got 3 areas that they're looking at how we do this and starting to put costs to each section. The first 2 sections are around 33 million, just ballpark. This is just looking at carving off the mountains to fill in the low spots, to make another lane, where you've got the cuts and you can make bench cuts and fill it in. Approximately 33 million in each one of those, and more expensive is the one from Keene past the Broom Ranch and up to Tehachapi, because of the railroad and the steep inclines that they don't have product to just carve and fill in. They're going to be doing more retaining walls, things like that. That gets very pricey. So, and then they're talking at the same time, included in this, the Bina, where that bridge that's there for the riverbed that's dry most of the year until it hits until it's toward Lamont. That would be replaced, and the Broom overpass would be replaced. So those are some things that they're looking at. They did mention that it's a very high priority in the state system now because of the trucks on 58. They expect the traffic or volume of trucks daily to increase by about 35% by 2040. We're almost at 21 years. That's a lot of trucks extra in another few years here. So they are looking at, so everything that they do needs to be built to interstate standards so that you never know, it might be Interstate 40 extended at one point. But at any rate, it's getting a lot of attention. They're looking at funding now, wherever that comes from. You know, this is years in the making, even though it's been just kind of a thought. Now it's a process, and now it's reports, and now it's engineering drawings and estimates, so it's moving along. So that's short report. Thank you.
That is so awesome, because all the areas you named are the places where I've almost got killed several times, so.
People get very impatient when you get a truck. It's interesting because now the people from Caltrans 9 in Bishop, when they go home, they go that way. They get a first-hand look at, oh, there's a truck at 15 miles an hour, and this guy's, the other truck behind him is going to pass at 16 miles an hour. It takes a while. They back up traffic. So anyway, it's getting good attention.
Oh, and just a comment on some citizens that needed some road work done near their home. I told them how to contact the city. They called in personally, and it was taken care of. The last time I checked with them, they said, oh, it's already been done. Great. So it was done in a timely manner. So I just wanted to let you know. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hedke.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've had a couple of additional comments from citizens. One regarding the broadcast of our city council meeting. And I know that we've had some problems in the past, and I would like to have staff look into how we can more adequately provide that service of transparency to the community. And I know that we've heard that there's bandwidth problems and some other things, but even if we've got to record the meeting in its entirety from a separate device versus what we are trying to pump out over the internet, at least at that point, the live may fall out, and then we can put the recorded version out there. That was the one concern that was conveyed to me. The other concern was regarding, and it came from a couple, well, actually it came from 3 individuals regarding code enforcement issues. I realize that has been a sensitive issue in our community. I know that our code enforcement guys do a wonderful job, and I've actually given them and the chief numerous accolades for the work that they've done in the past on a lot of projects. The individuals that did approach me were upset with issues that pertained to their businesses and to their residences. There were a couple of each, or at least one of each and 2 of the other. And, you know, code enforcement, as Chief, you well know, and most of us know, there is a very, very fine line of what somebody perceives that they're doing wrong, or that they're doing wrong, but it's not at a level of significance that requires a violation. Or, you know, I'll just throw the term out. It may not have been, because I didn't get down to the nitty-gritty specifics with any of these individuals, the harshness of the violation. But it was conveyed to me, and there was some dissatisfaction. I think that as the community, we have to abide by the rules and the ordinances that are established. I mean, we have to abide by that. At the same time, we may need to, in certain cases, we need to work with people, not necessarily with kid gloves, but there may be a different avenue that we could take in certain instances where we can kind of we can work with the individuals a little bit closer, so they don't feel as if there was any harshness that was directed at them for the situation that existed. Chief, I don't need an answer. It's just a comment from me, and it was conveyed to me by several members of the public. And that's all I have, Madam Mayor.
All right, Madam Mayor, distinguished councilperson Barb Reynolds, 47-year resident of Tehachapi. On the issue that you broached, Councilman Hedke, regarding code enforcement, absolutely the rules and regulations must be adhered to. But the very essence of a rule of law contemplates temperance. It contemplates the totality of the circumstance as that rule applies. And that is something that perhaps without the longevity of the application of that temperance, of those rules of law, considering the totality of the circumstance, that might get past certain individuals. But I would suggest that each in every circumstance, because code enforcement is not, everybody's not in violation, and of course we have businesses here that we can still take it on a case-by-case basis when we apply those violations, or we consider those violations. For instance, how long the establishment has been in business. That's a very critical element that needs to be taken into the totality of the circumstances prior to the rule of law being applied. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Davies, Carol Lane. I've noticed, and I've talked to some of my neighbors who've had violations or warnings. There's a lot of senior citizens, people that are retired, like way into retirement, people who bought their homes under like Prop 13, paying really low tax rates. And I've seen this in a lot of places in California. There's some nice houses, not one house that seems to be falling apart. And there could be someone very elderly living there, their family's not nearby. What are some ways we can do to, like I said, how can we help fix this situation? Because I've noticed this a few times on the block I live on, the neighbors I talk to. What can we do to help them, get in, to help? Maybe there's a fund or a grant or something we can do to help, elderly people stay in their homes and maintain them to a level that's not just for aesthetic reasons, but also their safety too, because a lot of times it kind of goes hand in hand. If the outside of the house seems to be falling apart, the inside's probably falling apart. So I think it's just something that it's your job. You guys get to figure out and solve these problems. So something to consider. Thank you.
Thank you.
Would you like me to address that here?
Yes.
I actually have a program that I'm going to be bringing forth to next council meeting that's going to address this very issue that Mr. Davies is speaking about. So it's an outstanding program that we're working on, a neighborhood improvement project. There's a lot of different elements to that. We're very excited about this program, and it's going to address some of those things that Mr. Davies is speaking of.
Thank you.
Great.
Great, thank you.
Okay, my turn. At this time, I would like to read my list of appointments for council members and department heads for various organizations and groups. This is not written in stone. If I read your name and you don't like that or can't do that or whatever, we'll talk afterwards, okay? All right, emergency preparedness. Susan Wiggins, the Public Information Officer, Public Works Director Don Marsh, Police Chief Kent Kroger, Finance Director Hannah Chung, and City Manager Greg Garrett, and Community Engagement Specialist Key Budge. We've added that because someone during that crisis has to put information out. Common interest groups will be me, Kern Council of Governments and Kern County Site Selection Organization. Phil Smith will represent KernCog once again, with Michael Davies serving as the alternate. Jay Schlosser will serve the TTAC, and Don Marsh will be the alternate for that. Department of Corrections, ACAPS, and Citizen Advisory Organizations. Police Chief Kent Kruger will serve on CAC. I will serve on CAPS, and the City Manager will be there for both of them. Kern County Air Pollution Control District, Councilmember Michael Davies, with me as the alternate. Kern County Association of Cities is all council members and me as the KCAC representative. League of California Cities, Susan Wiggins, and Pro Tem as Phil Smith. Tehachapi Senior Citizens Group, Councilmember Joan Pogencord will serve, and I will serve as the alternate. Talk to me later about brownies. Personnel Advisors, I will serve on that committee. Golden Hills Community Services District will be Councilmember Michael Davies. Capital Improvement Project Group, all City Council members. City Manager Greg Garrett, Public Works Director Don Marsh, Finance Director Hannah Chung, and City Engineer Jay Schlosser. Tehachapi Hospital Foundation is all City Council members. California State University, Bakersfield, Antelope Valley Campus Community Development Advisory Board would be Ken Hedke. Tehachapi Unified School District, Joan Pogencord. Tehachapi Valley Recreation and Parks District, again, Joan Pogencord. Tehachapi Municipal Advisory Commission, Mayor Pro Tem Phil Smith. League of California Cities Public Safety Policies Commission would be me and the police chief. LAFCO, it's not my turn to have a city member on LAFCO this year. Kern Economic Development Corporation will be me with Michael Davies as the alternate. Edwards Air Force Base is still City Manager Greg Garrett, who serves as an honorary commander. And the Tehachapi Events Center Committee Oversight Board will be Mayor Pro Tem Phil Smith. And like I said, if some of you, if one of you says, well, I want to be on that one too, well, just let me know. Or if you say that's impossible, I work, whatever, okay? But I'm happy with our list, and I look forward to all of us. We don't just sit here. We go out into the community, and we work with some of these boards, and we try to form partnerships. So we want to be out there and not just sitting here all the time. So that's all I have. If anyone else doesn't have anything, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion. Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Meeting adjourned.